Welcome to the training ground for Stockport County here at Carrington. We're with Simon Wilson, of course, County's Director of Football. Simon, it's been I guess you'd say, tumultuous week or two for Stockport County, but the transfer window we're going to talk about first of all. That closed last week. Just give us your summary, if you like, of events, and are you happy with the business that you've done in the last week or so?
Yeah, I think so. The transfer window, if you think the last time we spoke, we were in Mark's over at Vita, and I'd literally just come out of a meeting with Mark at that point. It's obviously debriefing the end of last season, and it's at that point that you start to set out your objectives and your intentions for the transfer window. Obviously, we've been having meetings going into that, but once we knew our League Two status was for this year, we had some targets to hit in regards to that. I suppose every transfer window is an opportunity to improve, and I think that was our overall objective: is can we make the team better? We had some objectives sort of set by Mark and in our discussions, which we all fully agreed with, which was around sort of evolving our style of play. We felt like we had become a little bit reliant on Kyle and that way of playing, and that towards the back end of last season we weren't so comfortable in terms of being able to get ahead and continue to attack in the games. We knew that Kyle was going to be out for a period of time this year, so we took the conscious decision to try and evolve our style of play with different ways of playing, so that at the point when Kyle came back in, that we had a full toolbox, if you like, of ways of playing. So, and as I said at the time when we spoke, it was going to be a bit of evolution rather than total change. We knew that we had a lot of things that were good about what we were doing. So in terms of the players that we've added, we talked about sort of difference makers and players that can travel with the ball. So in terms of Louis and Nick, we certainly think that we've got people that can score a goal out of nothing, and that will really help us in tight games. It will give us different threats to the opposition when they come and play us. They won't be able to predict the way that we play. And in terms of other things, in terms of introducing people like Ibi into the squad, so obviously team of the year last year, we felt he was a top quality professional person and certainly player. And in regards to like younger players like Ethan becoming into the squad, that was a conscious decision to bring him in and not re-recruit in that position to allow us to have him to get playing time and get opportunities to grow and develop. Unfortunately, through pre-season, sometimes it's not always strategic, so it might start off in that way, but as you start to train, players come back or don't come back from injury, you have to react a little bit. And what kind of took us a little bit by surprise this year was the change in rules and regulations around discipline and the length of time of games. Yeah. We knew in the first few weeks, or even in the last pre-season friendlies, that was going to have a material impact in this season. And we were already, 9 senior players out at times in the last few weeks. We were really concerned about squad depth. So we had to pivot a little bit in terms of some of our target positions that we wanted to acquire and move towards more squad depth positions. So when I sort of sit back, look back on the objectives that we were set, look back at what we've been able to deliver, I'm happy. I'm not ecstatic. I don't think we've got everything that we went for and that we wanted. But that's the life of every club. We had bids that were turned down. We had players that didn't want to come. We had, we had situations where we thought players were going to leave, so we took players that so we had the one in before the one went out, and the one went out and never went. All this happens at every club. It's not always perfect, but I sit here, and I think Dave sits here of, again, a really good squad of players. I think we have improved the playing squad from last year, and I think over the course of the season, those players will become real assets for the team and help the team do really well this year.
Because there has been a school of thought, hasn't there, that you knew Carl Wotton was injured, that you should have replaced like for like, so that at least there was another Kyle Wotton in the building until October. But it sounds as if you seem to be saying that because of this adopting a new style of play, if you like, that wasn't necessarily a priority to do that. Is that fair?
No, it certainly was discussed, and it was pretty much unanimously sort of disagreed with in terms of a direction for the future. We felt like whoever we brought in, it would bring, given how good Kyle's been for us, we didn't anticipate buying a player in front of Kyle, where Kyle would potentially not be able to play in the team. And we felt like it gave us an opportunity and a challenge to try and evolve and grow the team. Now, what we want to do is we want to be able to hurt teams in the most amount of ways and have great options. One of the criticisms that we had of ourselves last year was whether we had a plan B in terms of a real genuine different way of playing in the games that could manipulate the opposition to open up the spaces for our other good players. Hopefully we're getting towards that. Look, John, I'm sitting here, we're on game 6, the results haven't been good enough. So if we're judging the season right now, it isn't good enough. No one was going to say you've made the squad better. We're in a better place. But thankfully, it's a 46 game, not a 6-game season. And again, some of the things in these 6 games, I think all our supporters would say there are green shoots of some really good quality football in these games. There's been some really poor mistakes that have been made in these games as well. We've got to eradicate those. But I suppose I'm sitting here thinking out of what the mistakes are, what the areas of improvement are. We think they're very they tend to be more defensive stuff. We've got a bunch of defenders in our coaching staff, and defending aspects and organisational aspects seem to be the easier things to improve. It's very hard to make a team start scoring goals. We are scoring goals. We look like scoring goals a lot of the time, and that's quite pleasing. We haven't taken enough of those chances. We've made a couple of errors on the other side, which is making it look worse than it is. But we're still very, very early in the season, and I think again, if you're glass half empty, and I'm not just trying to spin this, is there are green shoots here that make us look like we can be a real threat this season in different ways with some of these players to come back.
There was, of course, an added complication, if you like, last month, and it's no surprise. Dave Challoner obviously has done terrific work since he's come in here with a title, a playoff final. So it's no surprise other clubs have come looking at him. But tell us about the process. I'm thinking particularly we know Charlton Athletic were interested. Tell us about the process, how that comes about, how do you handle an approach? What has been the outcome now? Yeah,
well, first and foremost, we like to handle approach, and I'm going to say approaches because we have had more than one approach, not just for Dave, for other people here, but we like to handle them privately. We would never, as a football club, stand in anyone's way of looking to better themselves, and we aspire to do that. That's what we sell in, to come to Stockport County, do what we're doing. Either you go faster than us, or we go faster than you, or we have the beautiful one into the sunset together where we achieve everything together. All those situations can play, and we have to be grown up about that. So when a manager's situation is slightly different to other ones in the fact that, I would say in 90% of managers' contract there is a buyout clause where obviously there's a termination payment if the manager moves on because of your accord. There's an amount of money to pay. If a manager wants to leave to join another club, there's a compensation payment that's made, and that's fixed. So if another club meets that, then we have to give permission to other clubs to speak. So that's the way it works. In different situations, managers may want to talk to some clubs, may not want to talk to other clubs. It's at their discretion. But from a club perspective, we won't prevent people to go and have those conversations. In fact, we can't really, but we wouldn't as a club, and we don't do that with other members of staff as well. So that's the kind of way it works. Obviously, we try to keep it private, and we try to keep the time frame really short so it doesn't destabilise anything that we're doing. I think in both situations this year that it hasn't, and I think we've certainly got a manager who's very, very committed to what he's doing here, and the group of players that he's got in there, and I'm confident that there was no disruption.
You mentioned injuries earlier on, and I think it's a really interesting area. I thought that was fascinating what you said about the injury time, and sitting in the commentary box sometimes you see 10 or 11 minutes going on. I don't know how much longer that can be sustained, but anyway, that's by the by. We have got a lot of injuries though, and it's only just come out of August. Is there something to worry about there? Is it something you've looked at? Is it bad luck, or is it to do with these extended games?
It's not to do with the extended games at this point, certainly the injuries that we've had to date. What you normally do with any injury analysis is you split them into contact and non-contact. So non-contact injuries are very preventable. They tend to be about the way the body's built, whether you're loading it upright. Sometimes you can be overloading it and putting a body at too much stress, or training too hard, too intense, too long is when it breaks. Contact injuries are different. They are random. There are occasions that you can't control. You could tell every player to pull out of every single challenge, but that wouldn't have stopped Will Collar running into Croasdale at one time, right? Which effectively got his injury. So contact injuries are contact injuries, and they're collisions, and they're a little bit random. We've had the majority of our injuries have been what you would call contact injuries. Even Callum Camps or Macca falling over on their shoulder, they're not a preventable injury. Could we have prevented them from falling over? I don't know. Tell them to stop running, but it's going to happen. There's a risk to it. We've been really unlucky with those contact injuries, and all happening at a very close moment of time. That said, we will not look into that. You know, we are looking into everything all the time to see what we can learn, what we can do differently. I'm sure there will be something. It might be a small thing, but you know, you speak to football clubs, physios up and down the country. They will separate them in those two ways, and in general, contact injuries are very, very hard to prevent, apart from telling players not to run around or change direction on a football pitch.
I mean, you said earlier results haven't been good enough, and I think we'd all share that view. But obviously, with that number of injuries, I'm sure you and Dave will sit down. So we still haven't had the chance to put out our best team, and I think anyone would accept that. But the fact the results have been poor in these first 6 games. Is it just down to that, or is there something more fundamental that you're looking at that you're concerned about? No,
it's not. It's not about injuries. In injuries, the fact that we've lost players at certain times, and that can be, can be in Dave's team for the weekend, and suddenly that's a player's gone, and that can be unstable in. But I think, Dave's, I'm sure, said this and would say it if he walked through the door right now. We've got enough good players to go and win games in League Two. We absolutely feel like we have done. So we're not happy with the results. But, and again, when we diagnose what's gone wrong is we've got the second highest number of shots in the league. In each of the games, we'll have had more chances than the opposition. We haven't put our chances away, and we've let sloppy goals in. And I know it sounds quite basic, but if we take more of our chances and eradicate the errors, we'll be more comfortable in games. What you've got to look at is you've got to say, well, are you doing the right things to create the moments in games where you have the chances? Are you limiting the opposition to the least amount of chances as possible? Outside of the Mansfield game, every game we've had, by a long way, we've sort of outshot, if you like, the opposition. That's what you want. It's at that point, you need the composure, you need the quality, and you need the the skill to be able to finish those chances. We're not going to go into. I really don't want to go down the referee's kind of line as well, but it's no secret that we had 5 apologies in the first 5 games, all around penalties that should or shouldn't have been given.
And that's what happens. They actually formally apologise to the club, don't they?
Yeah.
When they've made a mistake. And 5 in a row is quite unique.
Yeah, it's totally unique. So let me link that to the results part of it. There's another 100 minutes in the game apart from that penalty moment. So we're not using that as a reason, but they are factors in the sense that if that becomes the first goal in a tight game, it's important, isn't it? If that's a penalty for the opponent in a game which is tight, again they influence what can happen in that moment. So not only the injuries, we have had those situations occurring for us. Isn't normal, right? To have 5 in a row, to have 9 senior players, they're not normal circumstances. So I think it just has to be noted when we look at where we are, that there are some circumstances that are going on. That said, we've got enough to go and win games of football. The performances suggest we're close. We need that final part now, and we've got another 40 games to make sure that we deliver that.
One of probably the only benefit of what we've described there is the emergence of some young players. I guess the breakthrough was last year for Cody, but you've got Ashton now getting into the first team squad as well. I think he's still only 17.
That's right, yeah.
I know your overview is much bigger than just the first team. So from that perspective, you must be pleased to see academy players coming through, and there's more to come as well. Yeah,
look, I suppose the first principle is we want the club to progress up the leagues and go as high as it can do. We want to take it past its highest ever position. And we know financially in the lower leagues, we're going to be able to be strong and we'll be able to buy a lot of the talent in. But at some point, if the journey continues and we continue to go higher, our budget won't be as strong as some of our competitors as it stands until we commercial revenues pick up and stadium improves and all that stuff. There'll be a moment where we need to have players that are play higher than what we're paying them, if you like, and that has to come from young players. So you can't just start that in a year's time or whatever. If you're in League One, you can't just start thinking about it then. You've got to start thinking about it before now, if you like, and they have to start getting introduction into the team so they're grown and more experienced at the point when they're really needed. So it's really pleasing to know that we've got players that are in and around that space right now. Like, you can put those players in and you don't suffer hugely. Yeah. Now, do we feel confident enough, and this is no disrespect to the young players that we've got, if we played Cody, Ethan and Ashton every game, that we'd be able to win the league? I don't think we feel like that at the moment. But they're not there to do that at this moment in time. They're there to go and supplement the squad, contribute where they can contribute, and start to gain their exposure and their minutes so that they're ready for a point in the future when we probably will need to lean on them a little bit more.
Just thinking about the academy, it's been through its first full year, if you like, now. And I think there's sort of 200 odd players at that level. How do you feel it is progressing?
Oh, it's such a positive feeling to know that we're up and running again after probably a generation of lost talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because of losing the league status. So, kids in and around the Stockport area are now, in our academy and getting coaching, which I think is improving all the time. Like you say, we're up and running. We often talk about ourselves as a startup. We've got up and running. It's probably more than that, actually. We've got some players through to the first team, and we've got players that are of the interest of other clubs that want to try and take them.
You've got protection now at that level.
Yeah, exactly. So we're a little bit more in control of that situation now. And if a young player wants to stay at Stockport and not go to a big Premier League club, then they can do, and we've got a way of protecting them. So no, really grateful for the chance to have an academy for the club again. But some big things are happening this year. We've a couple of new staff appointments. Obviously, Paul Turnbull is now full time in our under 18s, assisting Jamie there. Jamie's had the sort of accolade and the recognition of being asked to go away with the Wales under 17 national team again, to sort of acknowledge his skills and abilities with those young players, which will help Jamie become a better coach, which means it's better for the club, which means it's better for our players. In our sort of what we call the youth development phases, that's between ages 12 and 16. The players have had the chance to go and play in tournaments, playing against teams like West Ham and things like that. So great experiences, and actually have been invited to a tournament in Italy, I think in March next year, for our under 12 group. So this is what gives us all so much pleasure, is that we're able to give these young players these experiences, which will be great life experiences, whether they go on and sign scholars or pros with Stockport County or don't. That's a life experience for those kids, which will help them, make friends, see something different that they might not have seen before, but also improve them as footballers, understanding what it is to go and play in tournaments and that kind of thing. So, really, really proud about that. And there's a ton of more stuff going on with the academy, which won't always get the coverage and the accolades but guys working sort of, long days, 7 days a week, all the time, and really devoting themselves to the growth of those young players. So really pleased with where that's at. It's an important year for us to improve on what we did last year, and like I say, ensure that we've got a pathway of young players coming through to come and play in the first team in front of supporters.
And the staffing as well, it has been strengthened recently in that area, which again I think is a sign of commitment, if you like, into that resource, into the academy. Yeah,
these things don't happen by crossing your fingers and hoping. You have to put the work in, and you have to put the infrastructure in to do it. So we have saved for the appointments and the growth of the academy, which might be a separate bit, but we've recently brought in a new kind of scout and a coordinator position, in the sense of Joe Monks, who's 3 months old now at the moment with the club, and has started to acquire some younger players that are in and around that Cody, Ashton, Ethan bracket, that we think may be part of the next chapter, if you like, and are just out there starting to get their exposure into men's football at the moment. So very similar path to Ethan Pye last year at loan at Gateshead, full season in the National League. Cody, who was on loan towards the back end of last year at National League North with Banbury. Those set up the next move, which could be in our first team or could be the next level of non-league football that they're playing in, and slowly we try to bridge that closer to our first team.
You talk about getting them into the first team. How much does perhaps the playing style of teams at that level, does that mirror what you're trying to do at the first team level? Because you've talked about a change in ethos this season. Do you try and make that change at that under 18 level as well?
Look, in a perfect world, you match the team up that play exactly the way you do, think the way that you were, coach the same way, treat physio the way, and still give the player lots of minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't all get all of those ducks in a row. The most important is that they're going to go and play. Because at any level of football, even if they're sharing it along, they're going to learn something. They're going to have to walk into a dressing room with men for the first time. They're going to have to come off at the end of the game having lost and look each other in the eye and deal with that, or have the emotions of winning and etc. So they're all the things. We're trying to add that final bit to them, which is the professional aspect of being a professional footballer, of this is your job now, it matters, winning or losing matters, and they have to go through that experience and get used to that and understand, be able to handle that. The technical aspects and the tactical aspects, we hope for our academy players will have had that from 9 years old all the way through, and they get that, all of the players, even the ones like the emerging talent guys that are out on loan, will train here with us on at least a couple of days through the week. So they get some of that tactical aspect of it through us. They still can play in our B team games, and like Josh Papula and Billy Chadwick came back and played in and around the EFL Trophy recently. So we're confident enough we still give them that. It's really about those men's minutes, stacking them up as many as possible and getting the trust of their teammates, getting the trust of the other managers, which is what they need to achieve in this year, and then kick on to come back to us.
And speaking of trust as well, I was reading, I think there were quotes from yourself or maybe from Dave, I can't quite recall, but talking about the young lads coming in on loan, so I'm thinking like with Joel Cottrell and with Alfie Pond as well, and I think you were saying about their parent clubs trusting in us to be able to look after them, and for all the reasons you just described as well. So that must be encouraging. Yeah,
it's good. I think I suppose it's not taken for granted. But if I was them, I'd look at us and think we're a great place to loan young players to. We've got an amazing stadium to go and play in front of. The pressure of playing in front of that amount of fans, a team that's expected to win. A training ground that means that if you're a Category 1 player or a Category 2 player at a Championship club, you're not going to walk through the door and think it's totally different. It's going to be very similar, so they can keep whatever standards they're setting there can be very similar to what they're doing here. So, yeah, I don't take it for granted and not being arrogant about it, but I can understand it from their point of view. And look, at certain times we don't want to be loaning young players from other clubs really, because we want our own young players to be featured in our team, but many a club have been promoted off the back of some excellent loan signs of catching that good young player before they go on to catapult into the big leagues, and we're at that stage of club where that's going to need to be useful for us. So I think the two young ones we've signed this year will do well for us and help, and it will be probably something that we need to continue to do in the future.
Listen, it's been really interesting. I'll just finish off if I can back at the first team, and I think the message you're giving is there's 120 points still to play for, so let's not panic at this stage. But do you remain optimistic for this season? Could it still be a promotion or a playoff campaign this year?
I think we can be champions. I don't see anything in the league that stops me from thinking that. It's not been the best start. We'd love to have the 18 available points. We've only got 5 at the moment, but certainly there's not enough of a gap between us and the current number 1 team to make me worry about anything. But I do think we need to get results on board as soon as possible, and I think we need everybody's help with that. I think that the support has always been fully behind the team in all of our difficult moments across the time at least I've been here. I really hope I can count on them to help us and help the boys through a little bit of a difficult moment that we're going through right now, but with the value of if we can come through it, we've got a really exciting back end of the season to go for again. And I'm really confident in the players that we have in the building and the staff we have to get this right.
That's really good to hear. We'll be chatting again, no doubt, between now and then, but we'll chat publicly again after the January transfer window as well. Good to see you.
Yeah, nice one, John.
Thank you.